Hello everybody, and in this video I am going to be doing something that I have never done before, and that's landscape photography with the Fujifilm X-T3. Now, I've had the X-T3 now just for a couple of days, and you're probably seeing this a couple of weeks after I've had the camera for the first, I will have played with the camera a little bit between now and when this video actually goes out. But right now, the only other trip I've done with the X-T3 is the one that you saw last week, where we went to Castle Combe and took some pictures there. But that's only a part of the sort of photography that I like to do, and I'm in the middle of the Cotswolds here, literally in the middle of nowhere. There is nothing else around us. And I found this place the other day. One of the things I like to do is go for drives in the Cotswold countryside. It is probably the most beautiful place, not necessarily in the world. Not necessarily in this country, but it's right up there with some of the top places in the world, I would say. I love the countryside here, but it's not always particularly photogenic. It's not, you will get lovely kind of rolling hills. You'll get fantastic bunches of trees, little bits of forest. There's a place called May Hill which has got a little forest on the top of it, and photographers have gone there for ages in order to take photos and things, but it's not always conducive to the best photography. And so what I like to do when I'm going anywhere in the Cotswolds is to choose a location, and then to go. I'm using the TomTom navigation system, and I choose winding roads, and that means that you get to go down all of those back streets, all of those little alleyways and things, and you often come across odd shots. And this particular shot that I'm going to take tonight, I was just at the side of the road as I was moving along, and I'd never have seen this had it not been for trying to sort of get out of my comfort zone and go somewhere else and try something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do now is start to set up the camera. We've still got about half an hour before the sun is really sort of starting to set, so we've got plenty of time really. I've kind of got what I think is a composition in my head. I'll have to see what it looks like in the actual camera. And we're going to sit here because this is at the side of the road. My car is right here, so I can sit in the car and wait for things, and then go back to the camera when I think the light is at the right level to actually do something. It should be a nice, relaxed sort of shoot, which I quite enjoy. Photography shouldn't really be about hectic running around and shooting stuff, not unless you're doing sort of sports photography or something like that. This will be the first time using the Fuji. First time that the Fuji's on the tripod as well, which I don't think is going to cause too many problems, but the first time using that Fuji to do landscape photography and seeing the sort of results that I can get out of it. So it should be interesting, and I think I'm going to get a very, very interesting shot here. I've got it looks like a great composition from down here. I've got not much foreground interest, but I've got some midground interest because I've got some trees in there. And we'll take a look at this probably when I've got the camera set up and you can see the actual composition that I'm going for. And then in the distance, we've got hills. Let's set up the camera and I'll see you in a few seconds with the camera and with the shot that I've decided to go for. So this is the shot, and right now actually you might not be able to see it very well because all of that sky is going to be blown out in the video that I've got. However, hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit of what we've got here now. Using the kind of rule of thirds, where we've got this tree here, that's over in the left-hand side of the rule of thirds. The tree next to it, that's right in the center of the shot, and up over here somewhere you should be able to see that there are what looks like sort of misty mountains. They're not mountains, and I'm going to try, and I might have to zoom out on this a little bit, which means that I might have to raise this up a little bit just to kind of reframe that shot, but I want to get as much of that peak in as possible. I want to make sure that that peak is part of the whole image, because that peak is kind of the reason why I wanted to take this photo. Because once that sun starts to sink back down there, that the sky obviously is going to light up. And we've got some nice cloud cover, nothing too harsh, kind of very light, very fluffy, very thin clouds, and hopefully we might get those lit up a little bit, which is why I'm going to wait not just for the sunset itself, but actually a little bit into that afterglow as well, where you got all those nice colours in the sky. That's what I did when I went to the Brecon Beacons, and I got some lovely colours in those shots. We'll see what we can get from here. There's also something else I'm going to do on the camera as well, and I'll come back to that when I stop recording this video. Anyway, that's the framing that we've got. That's the shot that we've got. So I have changed the shot just a little bit. Let's take a quick look at what we've done now. So, I've still got these trees, where are we? Down here. But they're actually on the bottom horizon line of the rule of thirds. And then what I've done with the peak of that mountain, I've put that on the top horizon line of the rule of thirds, because really this picture is going to be about the sky and about the landscape, obviously, but the sky and the colours in the sky are going to be important. So I wanted to be able to emphasize that a little bit, and in doing so I thought that having a little bit more of the sky in the picture would be a better thing. Now, there's a setting in these cameras that I have decided I needed to change, and it's the Fuji system is still pretty new to me at the moment, so it wasn't something that I was aware of straight out of the bat. It's all to do with digital noise reduction. You see, what the Fuji does is it adds in this digital noise reduction kind of regardless. It doesn't matter. The default setting of NR0, which I always thought would have meant that it was off, is still adding in noise reduction. But a lot of people have done experiments on this noise reduction and have said that actually that's not necessarily the best way of doing this. If you have got, if you change your settings so that you're in the NR of -4, there are a lot of times, especially if you're looking at very small details in an image, where you get a lot more texture to that image. And it's not just because you're adding in grain into the picture, although that is part of it. It's that the camera itself isn't trying to smooth out any grain that's already there. Now, I should say that one of the things that people keep mentioning about the Fuji X series cameras is that the grain that they do have is actually quite nice. It's quite filmic. It's quite sort of analog in the way that it models itself. So a lot of people are saying that that grain that you get anyway isn't specifically a problem and makes it look an awful lot more like you've got this kind of this film stock as opposed to a digital only stock, which is what happens a little bit more when you start to add too much noise reduction into the mix. Anyway, I've set both for video and for stills. I've now set noise reduction to -4, and I'm going to have a go at that and see how we get on with it. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Now, the camera set up, the scene set up, all I've got to do is wait for the sun. So whilst I'm doing that, instead of actually standing around and making more videos, which will likely have conversations in them that aren't actually particularly fun or anything, like this particular conversation I'm having right now, I'm going to sit in the car and wait for it to all sort of kick off. So, a bit of an update. Sunset is technically now. However, the light's kind of right. It's getting to that point, but the sun is still up above those mountains, and I need that to come down below those mountains. I've been sat here probably for about half an hour waiting for this to happen, and the sun is getting lower, but it's not quite there yet. There is a lovely sort of misty fog on that mountain in the background, and I think this might be a really nice shot, but that light's got to be right, and that sun has to be low enough in the sky so that it's not going to cause problems later on. As it is, I'm going to bracket this shot anyway. I'm going to try and expose the best I can, and then I've got my bracketing set to 5 shots over each one with 2 stops of light. So that should give me enough photos which sort out any problems, especially in the if I end up overexposing it by mistake. That should help sort some of that out. We'll see though. I mean, it's still just waiting around, waiting for that sun to change, reading Twitter, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's starting to get there. The colours are starting to get where I was expecting the colours to end up, and it's looking really good so far. So yeah, very excited to see what we actually get out of this in the end. Okay, so we've just got to a point. I just noticed the light level just completely drop, and it's because enough of the sun has gone down. Now the sun is still there. It's still this great big bright gleaming ball of sunniness, but I'm going to try a shot because on the horizon now we're starting to get those really beautiful colours, and it's a really beautiful kind of misty summer's evening out there. So I'm going to try and do this, and I'm going to put it on bracketing to start off with, because that means that if something goes horribly wrong, I'm going to be able to possibly pick up a different one of those shots. But we're going to, let's just start to dial this in. First of all, I want 1/15 of a second, I think I'm going to do. Also, I want to put this on timer mode, which that's tone timer, which I've put on 2 seconds. We're going to focus on. I'm going to focus on the bottom right. Basically about a third of the way into the thing, and I'm going to try and pick somewhere on here that's got a bit of definition, and in fact what I'm going to do is just increase the area that I'm selecting to focus with, because I think that's going to be important. So let's just okay, make sure that's in focus. That's all good. Bracketing is on, the 2-second timer is on. Okay, so I'm going to hold this down. It's the first time I've done bracketing with this at all, so I don't know what this is going to actually happen. Okay, 2-second timer's on. And that's interesting, because I think that's actually done something quite interesting. I'll just have a quick look through the photos. Yeah, so that's done something very interesting, and I'm looking through the pictures right now just to see what they actually look like. Now, the first one, very dark, is a great image of the sun, and you can start to see those colours in the sky. The second one brings in some of those, some of the mountain, the sort of misty mountains in the background, which I really love. And the third one brings in the foreground, and it's really nicely done for the foreground. I think, however, the fourth one is just a bit too much. Okay, I'm actually going to change the shutter speed so that we are... Oh, I've just realised what this is doing. On the side of here, I've got the I've got each exposure and where it falls in in terms of how exposed it is. So if I turn this to 30, we're going to start at 30 because I think that might be a little bit better. So let's just release that again. 2-second timer. Yeah, I think that's better. Just looking at those shots as they were coming onto the thing. We'll just take a quick look through them again. One, yeah, that's great because I can see the sun as a ball in the sky, and that looks really, really nice. Let's bring the next one on. I should start to see. Yeah, I've got the mountains in the background, so that should blend together really well. The third one, I've got the foreground on, but it's not as bad, it's not as harsh as the foreground that I was just looking at. So that's really great. Now, I think we've probably got another 10, 15 minutes before the sun is kind of where I was expecting it to land. But that first set of shots, really pleased with. So I'll come back when I think that the other shots are going to be ready. We're going to be ready to take the other. I'll come back in a bit. That's what I'm saying. You know, we're just about there. We're just about at that point where I think if I do one more exposure, I think this is the look that I was going for. This is the kind of effect that I wanted. You've got this really, really nice kind of subtle sky. Now, I've put the shutter speed up to 1/25th. This isn't one of those images where I'm going to do, you know, a long exposure where I want the clouds to be blended. That's not the point. The sky here, we're looking really at the colour of the sky. And the colour of the sky right now is just about right. So I'm going to press the button one more time and let's see what happens. Okay, let's take a quick look at those. Now the first image is very dark, far too dark for us to do anything with. The second image is really bringing out those colours. The third image, overexposed on the left hand side, but we can blend those two images together. And this has got the hills on. If I zoom into those hills right now, which isn't always easy to do on this, that's nice and sharp, but it's got enough data in there that I think we're going to be able to do something quite nice with that. The next one along, the foreground is nice and sharp. That means that we've got plenty in the foreground to work with. There's a little bit of noise on this, a little bit of grain, but you kind of expect that when you're in such low lighting conditions. So there we have it. That is this particular shot, standing in one place for about an hour, waiting for the sun to be in the right place. My first experience with the X-T3 doing landscape photography, and right now, just from what I can see on the back of the camera, I think it's done an absolutely fantastic job. I really love the bracketing feature on this. The timer is easy enough to set, and yet you don't have to go with it. You know, it's easy enough to turn off as well if you really want to. The exposure controls are nice and simple. You grab them and turn them, and that makes it a really nice experience of using this camera. Exposure compensation, everything else like that. Very, very simple to do, and I'm set to 0 at the moment, so there's nothing really to worry about there. All of the settings around here are easy to change the aperture. You're grabbing the ring on the lens, so it's not. It feels nice. The experience of taking a photo with this camera feels a lot more like an analog experience, and I think because of that, I think that's one of the reasons why people actually like this camera an awful lot. And I wasn't expecting to like it. I was expecting to get the camera and go, okay, well, I want to change the exposure controls, so I'm using the little dials on the back and front to do all of my exposure and change all of my settings. And funnily enough, just over these last two shots, I'm really, you know, I have no problem with changing those dials at all. I think they're great, especially with landscape, where it's a grab and turn, and you can see what's happening with the picture on the back of the screen as you do it, which you can't do in DSLR cameras. And I didn't quite realize how much of a benefit that would be to me with a landscape, because you don't think it's going to be a benefit with a landscape when you're bracketing a shot and you know you've got roughly the right exposure on the first frame. Then you'll know you'll have roughly the right exposures on the next frames as well. However, actually seeing it change in front of you, it lets you make a more informed decision, and it means that actually you don't need to spend as long taking a single shot. It makes you more efficient. And that's good. And the other thing I got to say about this, the camera's not been on all that much today, but it seems to have a relatively good battery life. I've used up one little segment at the moment. Now, Dad's got an X-T3 as well and was complaining that he seemed to be using the batteries up really quickly. Tomorrow, we might find out if this is going to be a problem, because tomorrow we are, as a family, going to the Cotswold Wildlife Park. I hope. It depends. It needs to be open. The toilets need to be open. There's a lot of things that we need to consider when we're going out and doing stuff still during lockdown. But the idea is that we're going to go there. Now, I might very well record a video of me going there and taking some shots. However, it's going to be the first time that I'm walking around constantly using the camera over the course of a day, taking quite a lot of photos. Last time I went there, I got a few hundred photos. That tends to be the case when I go somewhere like that with animals and things. So we'll see how that goes, and actually how the camera performs when you're more active with it. Because today, The two things I've done today, they've been very sort of minimal photography. I went one place to take a specific shot and I got a couple more shots along the way. I took probably about 20 photos. I came here to take a specific shot and I took that specific shot several times. So I took, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 different versions of that shot, and there were 5 shots in each. So a lot of photos, but the camera's not actually doing an awful lot of work. However, tomorrow will be a lot different, so that's going to be a really good test for the system. Until then, and if I do that video, you'll see that next week. So until then, let's take a look at the final image on this and how I actually blended it in Lightroom and Photoshop. Here you go, the final image, and I'm actually very pleased with this one. I love the sky in this, those golden colours. I adored it when I first saw them. There's not much more to say about this photo other than it's the sort of photo that I would like to take an awful lot more of. It really is the epitome of the Cotswold landscape, and I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and if you did, why not hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon as well, and choose all notifications, and that way whenever I release a new video, you'll get to hear about it first. Also, if you think anyone you know would like this channel, it would be a great help if you would let them know about it. You can't imagine how much a little word of mouth can do for a growing channel like this. Until next time, thank you very much for coming along, and don't forget, keep taking those photos.